Hello and welcome back to the UCLA Bruins Insider Podcast. I'm your host, Andrew Ferguson, writer for UCLA on SI. Today we're going to be taking a look at number 2 Michigan, things that UCLA needs to do to win, players who need to step up, as well as a game prediction at the end. But before we get started, I want to thank everyone right now who is listening and tuned in, whether it's Apple Music, Spotify, or even YouTube. It all means a lot to me, so thank you very much. So just kick things off, some general stats to kind of going into this game, things to kind of keep an eye on. UCLA is a 15.5 point underdog. And while this might seem steep, it really does make sense. Michigan is a great team. They're number 2 in the country for a reason. And UCLA has not been their best as of late. They kind of struggled against Washington. They looked iffy in the first half of the Rutgers game. And this is an East Coast game. Well, not an East Coast game, but still they're playing on Eastern Standard Time, which is very early for UCLA. I believe it's going to be 9:45 for UCLA's time. I think tip-off is around 12:45. So there's already an advantage for Michigan coming off, something that's incontrollable for UCLA, obviously. But still, UCLA needs to figure out how to play above that. But with that being said, looking at Michigan and what they've been able to do this season, I mean, they're averaging 90 points per game. Compare that to UCLA's 78.8. And you see a big difference being made. Rebounding wise, I think Michigan are averaging around 42.5 rebounds per game, somewhere around there. UCLA is only averaging around 32. So again, there is a huge drift among the things that will win games, especially in the Big Ten. Obviously, UCLA has had a decent offense. They had 2 games back to back where they were able to score 95 plus against Indiana and I'm thinking Rutgers. Those were 2 games where UCLA was able to score a lot of points, but Michigan obviously has a better defense, better at rebounding. Those opportunities to score those high points are not going to be there for the Bruins. Again, Michigan's also scoring the ball at 51%, so that means they are going to hit those shots that UCLA has kind of struggled with this season. We've seen halves where UCLA goes completely cold. Think first half of Rutgers. Against Indiana, there was also a pretty bad cold stretch for the Bruins that really caused those games to be closer than they should have been. If they can avoid this, maybe there's a chance, but still, Michigan is going to make the shots that matter, and it's going to be at a high frequency. This is going to put UCLA in a very tough situation to have to play consistent basketball, something that they have not done. I've yet to see a game where they've been able to play 40 minutes of good, complete basketball as of late. I mean, we saw that, there was a little bit of it against Purdue, but even then there was a stretch where Purdue was able to really, put UCLA, on their back shoulder and really get scared. That cannot happen against Michigan. UCLA needs to come out and have a commanding lead throughout this game. If they can't do that, I think they fall pretty bad. Up next, I want to talk about, the players who I want to see have a great game. Starting off with Donovan Dent. He's been playing his best basketball as of late. I think he's averaging around 18 points per game in the last couple of games, which is great. And we need that to be the same Dent against, Michigan. Against Purdue, he scored 23 points and had 13 assists. Well, it might be too much to ask for him to replicate that. That's kind of the performance Dent needs in this one. I would like to see him shoot well. He can just throw it up and then rely on, a foul call to even get those points to start to fall. In this game, I really want to see him shoot at least 50%, which might be too much to ask for Dent knowing his play style. He just drives really hard, kind of throws it up, draws contact. But still, I need to see those points score. He needs to control what he can control and not let the refs dictate how well he plays in this one. I also want to see his facilitating and decision-making, be flawless in this one. Again, hard to ask. We know Dent has had turnover problems. He has definitely improved, but in this game he needs to play perfect. Any turnover, bad pass, deflection, things like that will get you. Michigan will punish UCLA for those. And that starts with, Dent, finding the open guy perfectly and not really forcing passes, not trying to do anything special. It just needs to be clean basketball from top to bottom. Again, on the facilitating mark, Tyler Bilodeau, I think he is a guy who Dent will need to find a lot in this game. Obviously, we know that Bilodeau has kind of struggled with consistency and discipline issues. Those offensive fouls have started to kind of pile up. and turnovers, but he is UCLA's best shooter no matter what. If the Bruins can get him involved, I think UCLA has a really good chance. Same thing goes if you could find Trent Perry on a lot of open threes. Perry has been great in the corner. If Dent can, find him there more times than not, I think UCLA has a really good chance of, running up the scoreboard against Michigan. Well, it won't be like them, taking a convincing lead. It'll be them catching up and, setting the pace of this game. If we get Sky Clark back, I want to see Dent be more aggressive finding him. Obviously, he's not going to be, the player he was before the injury, but I think if he can get the volume he needs, I think the Bruins will have a very good shot in this one overall. Up next, again, Tyler Bilodeau. I mentioned him with Dent. I think Bilodeau is obviously UCLA's big game player. He played well against Arizona. Obviously, that game-winning shot against Purdue. He needs to do something very similar against Michigan. And again, it might be hard. Obviously, Michigan knows this, that Bilodeau is a player who can really hurt them. So they're going to obviously send a lot on him. There's going to be a lot of pressure around Bilodeau, but that's where Bilodeau really needs to, set his feet and hit those threes like he's done all season. He needs to be, a spot up shooter and really make it harder for Michigan to defend him. They can't let him, they're not going to let him, dribble the ball for more than 5 seconds without having another person on him, in my opinion. If I was Michigan, that's what I would do. I would want to limit Bilodeau as much as I can. With that being said, Bilodeau needs to play above that and really throw off Michigan's game plan. And he needs to be that game wrecker who's going to make those shots that are really going to impact this game. We know Bilodeau likes to shoot a lot in the second half, and he's been good at it. So if he can capitalize on that, keeping the momentum, consistent throughout the game, I think UCLA will have a very good chance of keeping up with Michigan. I also want to see him work on discipline. I kind of mentioned that when I was talking about Donovan Dent, but Bilodeau has been sloppy. There's a lot of times he's in foul trouble. Think back into Indiana, where the UCLA really did need him. He obviously didn't have the best game in the world, but still, if Bilodeau is able to stay out of foul trouble and really be consistent, I think the Bruins will be able to do fine. They're going to need him later in the game, and if he, is fouled out with 7 minutes in the second half, UCLA is going to be in a lot of trouble. Like I said in my previous podcast, is that UCLA really doesn't have the depth to support Bilodeau being out. And when he is, we obviously saw in the Cal game where he was injured, UCLA lost to a very bad Cal team that entering that game, UCLA was like an 8-point favorite or something like that. So again, Bilodeau needs to be consistent, needs to play disciplined, and he just needs to, take over when the moment calls for it. If he can do that, I think the Bruins have a very good chance. The third player is a little bit of a wild card. This is kind of interchangeable between, Trent Perry or, Sky Clark. There is a chance Sky Clark can play. Obviously, it's not confirmed yet, or, it wouldn't be contingent on this. But like I said, if Sky Clark can play, he's going to be a huge addition for UCLA. Obviously, like I said, with Dent, in the Dent section, he will be inconsistent at the start. I think it is hard to kind of get back into the pace of play coming off of a 10-game injury, especially hamstring. You're not going to be the player who's going to want to cut as hard, play as hard, that kind of thing at first. But, once he's able to get settled, I think he will be a huge piece for UCLA. We know how good he is at shooting the three ball. And if he can do that effectively, I'm talking either 2 for 2, 2 for 3 in this game, it'll give UCLA a fighting chance to stick with Michigan. And that'll be needed. UCLA needs, the depth. Obviously, Jamar Brown, Brandon Williams, Eric Frenney, Steven Jamerson have not really been the best off the bench. But I think if, we get Clark off the bench, I think he will be good. Same thing goes with Trent Perry. He needs to shoot the ball effectively. His minutes might be a little skewed in this one if Clark comes back. But even with the small minutes he has, he needs to be able to hit, the shots that count. We know how clutch Trent Perry is. Against Indiana, he hit that game-tying 3 to send the game to overtime. We need that kind of Perry in this game. But to kind of wrap things up, the overall message in this one is that the Bruins, stars, the cornerstone players of the program today need to play their best basketball. And whether this is 30 points performance, but they just need to do enough to help UCLA get into this game and not, let Michigan fully take over. if the Bruins are able to limit, some of the Michigan stars, Yaxel Lendenborg, for example, Michigan's leading scorer and rebounder, if they can limit him, I think they'll be fine. But the overarching message here is that they need to play what they're good at well and do what they're bad at, not so much. And obviously that kind of goes without being said, but still, those are the things that will matter. Obviously, that has been easier said than done for UCLA. I mean, we know Dent can score when he wants to. Same thing with Bilodeau, Clark, Perry. But if they can't do that effectively, I think UCLA will be in big trouble. So to kind of finish things off, I want to give a little bit of a game prediction. I think if UCLA is able to do the things I just said, control the pace of the game, play a clean game of basketball, they have a chance of winning. Do I think it's likely they'll win? Again, 15-point underdog. I don't really think so. But if they were to win, I think this game could be, 87 to, 93 UCLA game-winning shot for the Bruins. If they lose, it's not going to be close. I think if they, struggle, the struggles are going to add up. I know UCLA has a glass jaw. That's how Mick Cronin described them. They get hit once, they have a hard time getting back up. And I think if Michigan sets the tone early, I think they could really take over this game. So that said, I could really see an 80 points for Michigan, 68 for UCLA. I think if that happens, I think the Bruins will really struggle to kind of get things going consistently in this game, especially if Michigan starts off hot, which they probably will. But that being said, that's all I really have to share with you guys today. It's going to be a very competitive, maybe even fun game. If UCLA can kind of keep, their head in game and do what I said, I think they will be fine. But still, this is the biggest test for UCLA. And we know how impactful a top 2 win is with the tournament kind of coming around. But anyways, that's all I have for you guys today. Again, thank you so much for listening if you made it this far. And as always, fours up and have a good day.